Some subjects are best approached in calm surroundings, where the air feels still enough for details to settle into place. It is the sort of topic that unfolds naturally once the mind slows to its proper rhythm, as if long sightlines reveal themselves only after the noise fades. With that quiet established, the first shape to emerge is the La Sniper rifle, the standard long-range instrument of the Imperial Guard, whose purpose has never been spectacle but consistency, a weapon defined by its refusal to waver across shifting terrain. Its beam, a disciplined thread of coherent light, travels with an almost detached exactness, ignoring wind, dust, and the vibrations of distant engines, turning open fields and fractured structures into predictable geometries, where a single, silent discharge can redirect an entire engagement. The rifle becomes not merely a tool, but a framework for perception. It teaches patience by rewarding stillness, reshaping the battlefield into a sequence of deliberate breaths and narrow points of convergence. Its capacitors hold a stable output that resists fluctuation, granting the operator a sense of quiet authority over distance, where recoil does not intrude and sound does not betray. In such conditions, formations falter before understanding what unsettled them, for the shot is already complete by the time awareness reaches the target. And so, the La Sniper rifle forms the foundation upon which all more specialized long-range weapons are built, establishing a pattern of control that threads through every subsequent development in the galaxy's arsenal. From the quiet reliability of the La Sniper rifle grows another branch of the same doctrine, one shaped not merely by distance, but by disappearance. And in that shift, the outline of the camo sniper laser gun becomes clearer. A weapon defined not by its physical construction alone, but by the environment it dissolves into. Where the standard long-range LAS pattern governs the open lines of battlefield geometry, this variant governs the unseen corridors between them, the shaded slopes, industrial ruins, and fractured metal frameworks where vision becomes uncertain and movement folds into shadow. Its integrated camouflage systems are less about invisibility and more about erasing the predictable patterns by which a sniper is usually found. Micro-reactive fibers along the rifle's housing absorb ambient tones, muting edges and scattering reflections until the weapon's presence becomes an extension of whatever surface it rests against. In practical terms, this transforms the act of aiming into something closer to inhabiting the landscape, allowing the operator to merge with the static noise of terrain rather than compete with it. The beam it delivers remains precise, though its charge is tuned for subtler discharges, prioritizing minimal thermal signature over raw penetration. Targets struck by it often register their failure to detect the shot more acutely than the impact itself, for the projectile does not break the air with sound or reveal its origin with glare. The psychological effect of this rifle reached deeper than the physical. Squads moving through ruins or vegetation advanced with a constant sense that their surrounding space might already be occupied by an unseen observer, one who required neither elevation nor open ground to impose influence. The camo sniper laser gun changed the rhythm of reconnaissance engagements by creating a diffuse kind of threat, one that shifted positions without announcing transitions, forcing enemy units to slow their momentum, to crouch beneath incomplete cover, to question each fragment of terrain that might harbor a disguised presence. It was not a weapon of decisive strikes, but of cumulative pressure, guiding the battle not through sudden impact, but through silent suggestions of being watched. And from that subdued pressure emerged the need for a different answer to the same problem of distance. For some threats could not be addressed by refined illusion or precise light alone, but demanded a projectile driven by force itself, marking the path toward the next evolution in long-range design. From the subtle pressure of camouflage and whispered trajectories, the logic of long-range warfare shifts toward something heavier, a response to opponents who learn to absorb light or disrupt energy signatures. And in that shift, the presence of the rail sniper takes form with the quiet weight of a machine that trusts neither illusion nor projection. Its principle is brutally straightforward. Accelerate a dense projectile to such velocity that distance ceases to matter, cutting through interference fields, reactive armor, and fortified glass as if the medium between shooter and target has been reduced to vacuum. The weapon reshapes the meaning of patience. The moment before, the shot feels dense, as though the air itself stiffens under the buildup of electromagnetic charge. And when released, the projectile carves a straight, uncompromising line that leaves no ambiguity about its intention. Operators learned quickly that recoil was not the defining challenge. It was the tremor that passed through the structure around them, a reminder that the rifle interacted with the environment as much as the enemy. With each discharge, distant observation posts, armored crews, and concealed sharpshooters felt the influence of a force designed to ignore their precautions. The rail sniper turned long-range confrontation into an argument of mass and velocity, a stark counterpoint to the quiet precision of last-based tools. And it opened the path toward weapons whose energy no longer traveled as light or metal alone, but as controlled heat capable of bending the limits of distant engagement. From the harsh certainty of kinetic impact, the progression moves toward a more volatile form of precision, where the projectile is no longer a solid mass but a contained fragment of star heat. And in that transition, the plasma sniper rifle emerges as the instrument for targets that refuse to yield to conventional force. Its operation depends on a disciplined pulse rather than sustained charge, compressing unstable plasma into a narrow, momentary burst that travels with deceptive grace before erupting against armor with a brightness that lingers at the edges of vision. The weapon shifts the psychology of engagement. Its operators maintain the same patience expected of any marksman, yet the shot carries an undercurrent of restrained danger, a reminder that each trigger pull balances on the edge of controlled instability. Its impact does not merely penetrate, but disrupts, softening reinforced plating, warping mechanical joints, and leaving behind a residue of heat that unsettles even those who were not struck directly. This rifle forced opponents to reconsider their fortifications, for hardened shields, layered composites, and reactive shells could not simply deflect its pulse. They distorted, split, or melted under its touch. And from the aftermath of that scorched precision came the realization that some engagements demanded not just heat, but total structural collapse delivered from afar, guiding attention toward the next variant, shaped for dismantling machines themselves. From the lingering scorch of plasma, the evolution of distant fire narrows toward a singular purpose, breaking machinery built to survive every lesser threat. And in that narrowing, the melta sniper takes its place as a weapon meant not for intimidation or precision alone, but for the quiet erasure of armored certainty. Its principle follows the old logic of thermal collapse, projecting a focused burst that does not travel as a beam or a projectile, but as a concentrated distortion of matter, collapsing molecular bonds in a line so thin it appears almost delicate until the moment of impact. Vehicles that once relied on layered plating, heat dispersal ribs, or reinforced housings found themselves undone by a weapon that ignored surface strength and struck directly at the structural heart beneath. The shot leaves no dramatic ignition. Instead, metal softens, frames buckle inward, and engines fail in a muted downward sigh, as though the machine itself recognizes the futility of resisting. Operators learn to use this silence to shape entire approaches, removing sentry turrets, armored transports, or fortified shutters without drawing the attention such destruction would normally invite. The melta sniper redefined long-range anti-armor work by making devastation feel almost understated, and from that restrained power grew the need for a variant capable of returning to solid projectiles while preserving this precision, a path that would eventually lead back toward modified ballistic forms shaped for singular, measured strikes. From the muted collapse left by melta fire, the trajectory of development bends back toward the tangible weight of ballistic precision, as though the discipline of distant engagement required a return to the familiar solidity of metal In that return, the Longshot autogun emerges as a deliberate refinement rather than a regression, a weapon built around the idea that a single physical round, if shaped, balanced, and accelerated with enough care, can achieve the same quiet finality as any advanced energy system. Its design emphasizes stability, elongated barrel housing, reinforced recoil dampeners, and ammunition engineered for minimal deviation during flight. What distinguishes it is not brute power, but the way its mechanics create predictable arcs, allowing an operator to place shots through shifting crosswinds, across irregular terrain, or through narrow gaps in debris where energy pulses would scatter or dissipate. The faint crack of its discharge feels understated compared to the violent hum of plasma or the low roar of melta distortion, yet this simplicity grants the rifle a kind of unassuming authority. It excels in drawn-out observation posts and hidden perches where ammunition must be rationed and every shot measured not by spectacle, but by certainty. The Longshot autogun reintroduced the subtle intimidation of a distant marksman, whose presence is felt not through glowing residue or warped metal, but through the quiet disappearance of key targets, creating a foundation from which lighter reconnaissance rifles would later emerge, shaped for movement rather than endurance. From the steady, deliberate rhythm of the Longshot autogun, the progression narrows toward mobility, toward the kind of marksmanship where endurance gives way to movement, and the rifle must follow its operator rather than anchor him. This shift is what shapes the Scout Sniper rifle, a lightweight instrument designed not for entrenched positions, but for reconnaissance paths that twist through forests, industrial ruins, and fractured terrain where silence matters less than the ability to relocate before the enemy adjusts. Its reduced frame carries only what is necessary: a balanced stock, a simplified chamber, and a barrel tuned for consistent accuracy, without the weight that would slow a scout's advance. The lack of excessive mass changes the energy of engagement. The rifle does not impose patience. It adapts to the operator's momentum, allowing precision shots taken from half-stable perches, brief pauses between strides, or elevated structures where lingering would be a liability. Its projectile lacks the overwhelming force of heavier systems, yet it strikes with enough reliability to remove watch posts, disrupt patrols, or silence sensors before their signals travel far. The psychological effect of this weapon lies not in its power, but in its unpredictability. It belongs to marksmen who do not remain in one place long enough to be tracked, who alter the contours of the battlefield by appearing briefly, cutting a single thread, and leaving without imprint. The Scout Sniper rifle carved out a niche where intelligence gathering and targeted precision merged, and from that merging arose the need for tools that extended beyond conventional mechanics, weapons capable of guiding a projectile not just with skill, but with the force of the mind behind it. From the fleeting imprints left by scout marksmanship, the narrative shifts toward a weapon that does not rely solely on physical steadiness or terrain advantage, but on the convergence of focus and will, a point where the marksman's perception becomes part of the shot itself. It is here that the Psybolt rifle emerges not as a mystical artifact, but as a disciplined fusion of engineered conduits and directed psychic force, structured to channel a controlled surge through a stabilized firing chamber. The projectile it releases is not standard matter or coherent light, but a charged bolt shaped by the operator's intent, guided along a path that bends subtly around wind shear, reflective barriers, or attempts at visual interference. Its influence reaches beyond simple penetration. The impact disrupts neural signals, fractures concentration, and can break the cohesion of units trained to ignore pain, but not the sudden unraveling of spatial awareness. Operators describe the moment before firing as taut rather than tense, a narrowing of perception where the rifle feels less like a tool and more like an extension of the thought that propels the bolt. This interplay between mind and mechanism brought a new form of psychological weight to distant engagements, for enemies learned that cover, camouflage, and counter-sniper screens could be bypassed by a shot that adjusted mid-flight, seeking the intention behind the target rather than its exposed surface. The Psybolt rifle reshaped the battlefield, not through its destructive force alone, but through its precision of purpose. And from that purpose arose the demand for weapons that returned to more traditional forms, while preserving the subtle art of remaining unseen, a progression that led inevitably toward machines built to erase their own signature entirely. From the disciplined convergence of mind and mechanism that defines the Psybolt rifle, the path curves back toward the clarity of engineered precision, toward a weapon designed not to channel thought, but to perfect the fundamental principles of laser fire. This is where the sharpshooter's laser gun takes shape, a refinement of earlier last patterns built for marksmen who depend not on esoteric force, but on predictability under every conceivable condition. Its stabilizers absorb micro-vibrations, its focusing lenses remain consistent under temperature shifts, and its discharge cycle is tuned to eliminate the faint inconsistencies that accumulate during prolonged engagements. The result is a beam whose reliability becomes almost unnerving in its calmness, a line of light that seems to ignore the chaos around it, passing through smoke, dust, and narrow gaps without distortion. Marksmen using it describe a sense of detached assurance, as if their task has been reduced to a single, repeatable motion, carried out with quiet inevitability. It is not a dramatic weapon, nor one that alters doctrine, but it refines the doctrine already in place, turning the marksman into a constant element amid fluctuating terrain. The psychological effect arises from this constancy. Enemies confronting it come to expect that any exposure, however brief, may be answered with flawless precision. And yet, even this high stability carried the limitation of visibility, for the beam left a trace, a suggestion, a direction that could be followed. Thus, the progression of long-range design continued toward a final tool, one that kept its presence hidden even after the shot was fired, a weapon whose velocity outpaced perception and whose signature dissolved before counters could be formed. From the unwavering precision of the sharpshooter's laser gun, the final step in this lineage moves toward absence itself, toward a long-range instrument that abandons light, heat, and psychic resonance in favor of pure velocity concealed within silence. This is where the stealth railgun stands apart, a weapon engineered so thoroughly around discretion that its presence becomes detectable only in retrospect, after the target has already fallen and the trajectory has dissolved into the static of open air. Its electromagnetic coils ignite without flare, discharging a projectile whose speed strips away the usual markers of origin. No muzzle flash, no thermal bloom, no lingering shimmer to betray its path. Even the recoil is redirected through internal dampers, leaving the operator motionless within their perch, as if the shot were only a thought passing through metal. The projectile itself remains indifferent to the obstacles that shape lesser weapons. It cuts through layered composites, observation ports, sensor domes, and reinforced casemates before the structures around them fully register the breach. Engagements shaped by this rifle unfold with a peculiar stillness. There's no warning, no echo, only the quiet impression that something vital has been removed from the field. Enemies learn to move without confidence, to scan horizons that reveal nothing, to question whether the space around them is truly empty or simply waiting. And as the rifle completes its purpose, the entire tapestry of long-range warfare feels momentarily suspended, held in the thin, breath-like pause that follows a perfect, vanishing shot where distance, noise, and even time seem to fold inward for a moment before the battlefield resumes its slow, inevitable motion.